I've seen images that haunt my thoughts. Bones of gigantic creatures, embedded in the earth like silent witnesses. Some of these fossils whisper stories that go beyond science, tales of agony, survival against all odds, endings both brutal and tragic. I think of the Centrosaurus, thousands of them drowned in a flash flood. Their remains became what is now known as the drowning cemetery. They moved together, these Centrosaurus, a herd as they always were, a mass of prehistoric life with a rhythm honed over centuries. The place where their lives ended became known as the drowning cemetery. They were medium-sized herbivores that lived during the late Cretaceous period, roughly 76 million years ago. With its prominent nasal horn and an impressively ornamented frill, the Centrosaurus was a symbol of power, yet also perhaps a victim of its own evolution. They meet about 6 meters in length, weighing over 2 tons, and were well adapted to group living. It was precisely this group dynamic that sealed the fate of thousands on that fateful day. The site where their bones were discovered, now in southern Alberta, Canada, marks one of the largest fossil concentrations ever found. The area, once a floodplain near an ancient river, became the collective grave of an entire herd. It's a tragedy preserved in time, a macabre snapshot of natural horror. The rain, I imagine, came in a torrential downpour. Within hours, the familiar territory transformed into chaos. Then there's the story of the Triceratops with the infected bite. Imagine an animal more than 9 meters long, weighing between 6 and 12 tons, slowly traversing the plains of a lost world. Its name, Triceratops Horidus, with 3 sharp horns on its face and a protective bony frill rising behind its skull. This giant herbivore was one of the last dinosaurs to inhabit the Earth before the mass extinction event approximately 66 million years ago. But among the many fossils discovered, one tells a particularly dark story, marked by pain, survival, and above all, violence. In this specific fossil, what caught the paleontologists' attention wasn't just a well-preserved skull. It was the perforations located in vulnerable areas of the facial bone. These perforations, when analyzed, revealed a specific pattern: a curvature, a spacing between the marks, a depth compatible with only one living creature of that time, Tyrannosaurus rex. The powerful jaws of this predator could exert a force of more than 5 tons, enough to crush bone and tear away entire chunks of flesh. But what makes this case so intriguing is that the Triceratops didn't die at the moment of the attack. Quite the opposite. The bone surrounding the perforations shows clear signs of irregular growth, a biological reaction to the body's attempt to heal. An inflamed type of bone callus, typical of infection. The Triceratops survived. This discovery shifts the traditional narrative of the late Cretaceous food chain. Instead of a simple predation scene, we are faced with a more complex drama: the attack, survival, infection, continuous pain, and finally, a slow death. The skull becomes a witness not only to a brutal fight, but also to the resilience of a wounded animal struggling to carry on. The infection that settled into the perforations of the skull was severe. The disorganized bone growth indicates that the body reacted however it could. This inflammatory response is a clear sign that it lived for several weeks after the attack, perhaps even months. Every movement of the jaw, every bite of leaves or branches caused pain. And then there's the Protoceratops versus Velociraptor. In the heart of the Gobi Desert, one of the most inhospitable and arid regions on the planet, lies one of the most dramatic testimonies of the age of dinosaurs. A moment frozen more than 70 million years ago, where life and death became intertwined in a fierce dance. This is the fossil known as the fighting dinosaurs. Protoceratops versus Velociraptor. Two names, two destinies sealed in a confrontation as brutal as it was intimate. On one side, Protoceratops, a medium-sized herbivore with a large bony frill and a beak sharp as scissors. I've always been drawn to moments frozen in time, those instances where the raw ferocity of nature is captured with startling clarity. And few fossils speak to this as powerfully as the one we call the fighting dinosaurs. It reveals a velociraptor, sickle-shaped claw raised, locked in mortal combat with a protoceratops, each fighting for its life in the sand. There was no victor. The outcome was mutual death. That fossil, you see, doesn't just give us names and shapes. It reveals a precise instant of combat. The sand, rich in minerals and compacted over time, became an extraordinary agent of preservation. The fossil not only preserved the bones, but also maintained their relative positions. The limbs, the teeth, the claws, everything is there, as if time itself had paused. But there are other such moments, equally dramatic. Consider, for example, what happened in the arid heart of what is now Montana, roughly 66 million years ago. Here, one of the most brutal confrontations of the Cretaceous period reached its end. The supreme predator, Tyrannosaurus rex, met its end in a shocking and unexpected way. This particular rex, nicknamed Pex Rex, tells a story unlike any other. When scientists analyzed the fossilized skeleton, they found a massive puncture wound in the neck, precisely where vital arteries, the trachea, and crucial muscles supporting the head were located. It was as if a spear had been driven with devastating force straight into the animal's vital system. But this spear wasn't metal. It was bone, the horn of a Triceratops. Entire dinosaur families, from juveniles to adults, preserved side by side, their deaths bearing witness to an instant of collective panic. These were not natural deaths, isolated or spread out over time. They were sudden events, catastrophic moments when nature turned against its own children with devastating fury. In China, within the Yixian Formation, entire groups of Psittacosaurus, small bipedal herbivores, have been found piled together in layers of volcanic sediment, suggesting they were buried alive by ash from a sudden eruption. In Mongolia, sandstorms engulfed dinosaurs in mid-motion, their poses preserved within the desert, revealing final attempts to escape an inevitable death. In Madagascar, a mudslide captured an entire group of Majungasaurus, feared predators that, according to the evidence, had no time to fight back. They were crushed, immobilized, preserved. And in North America, in locations such as the Morrison Formation, the remains of Diplodocus and other sauropods appear grouped in patterns suggesting entire herds were wiped out at once by sudden floods. These sites allow us to see beyond death. They show us how dinosaurs lived, how they organized themselves into herds, families, and social structures, and how even in groups they were vulnerable to the power of nature. Take, for instance, the Pachyrhinosaurus, crushed in a stampede. In the petrified silence of time, when the world was ruled by gigantic reptiles, a tragedy unfolded beneath the darkened skies of ancient North America. These bones belong to Pachyrhinosaurus, a gregarious herbivore whose head was adorned with thick bony bosses rather than sharp horns. But it is not this animal's appearance that draws attention. It is the way it died. Paleontologists carefully excavating a vast rock formation in what is now Alberta, Canada, encountered a macabre scene. Dozens of Pachyrhinosaurus fossils stacked atop one another, with bones crushed and fractured. Imagine the terror! A herd of Pachyrhinosaurus, peaceful herbivores usually, suddenly seized by panic. They collide, a desperate, chaotic flight from something unseen. The weight of tons of flesh and bone becomes a deadly force, crushing the weakest. I can almost see it. The fossils telling a story of a family, juveniles and hatchlings among them, all caught in this horrifying moment. The fractures on their skeletons weren't from a fall or a predator. It was a stampede, a prolonged, intense force. Some did survive, bearing healed fractures, but others suffered acute trauma. The force came from all directions, not from above like a landslide, but as if they were compressed within a living, desperate mass. Paleontologists call it herd death, a catastrophe that ironically preserves these moments in time. Then there's the Carnotaurus, the meat-eating bull, a fearsome predator from South America, 70 million years ago. But even kings have their weaknesses, and this particular fossil tells a silent story of pain and struggle. A fractured jaw, unhealed, stared back at me from the rock. The break was severe, compromising the entire side of its mouth, crippling its ability to hunt. It wasn't a superficial fracture, but a deep rupture in the jawbone. What struck me most was the absence of healing. No new bone tissue, no calluses. It was as if the injury had just happened, mere hours before its death. The grim hypothesis: starvation. Unable to kill, the mighty predator was reduced to a weakened body, slowly succumbing. Imagine its suffering. Every bite, every movement, sending waves of pain. A predator transformed into a shadow, pushed out of its territory, abandoned by its prey, perhaps even by its own kind. And then the Tyrannosaurus rex, the tyrant lizard king. A fossil discovered in Montana revealed something truly unsettling. Bite marks on its bones, made by another T-Rex. It wasn't a smaller predator, but the unmistakable dentition of another tyrannosaur. Suddenly, everything we thought we knew about their behavior is thrown into question. Cannibalism? A territorial dispute? Or simply a meal where opportunity outweighed social restraint? This giant, 13 meters long, capable of exerting 6 tons of press with its jaws, was a bone crusher. These banana-shaped teeth were made for crushing, not just tearing. Imagine teeth so powerful they left their signatures on fossilized bones. That's what I saw in the Montana find. The bite marks on the skull, jaw, arms, and legs. They tell a story. Those aren't just random marks. They're a precise record of the moment one tyrannosaur pressed its teeth against the bone of another, tearing away flesh. It's like a time capsule, offering a glimpse into behaviors that theories alone could never reveal. But what does it all mean? Was Tyrannosaurus rex actually eating its own kind? If so, why? The most widely accepted hypothesis is opportunistic cannibalism. In the harsh environments of the late Cretaceous, food scarcity could have driven even the largest predators to feed on the bodies of their dead. It's not unheard of in the animal kingdom. Crocodiles, sharks, even bears sometimes resort to cannibalism when circumstances demand it. Why would it have been any different 66 million years ago? Then there's the even more dramatic possibility: a fight between two Tyrannosaurus rex individuals over territory, mating rights, or dominance over a kill. The victor, in the end, may have consumed parts of the defeated rival. We see this behavior in modern predators too. Wolves, for example, may kill members of rival packs and feed on them. In this light, Tyrannosaurus rex isn't just a killing machine. It becomes an animal with complex social behaviors, where extreme means were sometimes necessary.